Hi, my name is Allegra, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Pokeball in Maya in 10 to 15 minutes or less. So let's get started with a new scene. We're just going to go to File, which is in the top left, hit New Scene. And here's just our blank scene, blank canvas to start with. So before we start putting anything in here, I want you to go to Google and just look up a reference image of a Pokeball. This can be anything with a clear background. I chose this one, for example. Oops, this one. And I am just going to import it into the scene so that I can have it right next to me and I don't have to keep switching between windows on my computer. All right, so we're going to go to Create up here, then go to Free Image Plane, click on that. And now we're going to go all the way over to the right, go to the Attribute Editor, and we're going to go to the image name and click on this folder icon right here. So click on that, and that will allow us to import the reference image that we chose from the internet. So let's grab this one. Cool. So now we have our reference image in there just to look at. I'm just going to move it to the side a little bit. All right. So the first step for the Pokeball is we're going to just start with the basic sphere. So if you go to Poly Modeling and then click on the polygon sphere, just click on that. It will generate a sphere for you. So another one of my favorite hotkeys is F. So if you hit F, it will frame the object that you've clicked on for you, so you don't have to zoom in and zoom out all the time. All right, so I think this Pokeball needs to be a bit bigger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to the left toolbar, and then we're gonna select the last tool here, which is the scale tool. So click on that. And another way you can also get to that hotkey is just by hitting R. So yeah, R works as well. And you're just going to click on the center square and scale it up. So it's about the same size as our reference here. All right. So another thing I want to do before we get into the details is I want to go into the channel box layer editor on the side here. And I'm going to click on where it says inputs, the polysphere 1. And I'm going to put up the subdivisions to, let's say, about 30 for both of them. So now you can see the polysphere has a few more subdivisions. It's a bit smoother, a bit more detailed. And this is just going to make it easier for us to add in details later on. All right. So the next step is we're going to add this little black belt around the Pokeball. And as you can see from the reference image, it's not just a black line. There's a bit of an indent there as well. So we're going to model that into our sphere. So the easiest way to do this is if we look at the sphere from a straight on view. So the quickest way we can do this is if you hit the space bar on your computer and then right click on the screen. And it should pull up all the different view options that you have available to you. So we are going to choose the front view. And now that's giving us just a perfectly lined up front view so we can center everything nicely. All right. So for the line in the middle, we are just going to select the faces, this inner belt here, that's kind of right on the graph line. And to do this, we can right click on the sphere and then select face. And this will just take us into the face mode where we can select individual faces on the polysphere and edit them individually. So we're going to select all of the squares and all of the polygons in these middle two rings here. And I like to do this a quick way by hitting Shift, clicking on one, and then clicking on the one next to it. And that selects the entire belt. We're going to do that for the same one here. Click on one, click on the one next to it, and those are all selected. And now to make that indent, we're just going to hit extrude. So you can hit shift, right click, and then extrude face, which is the bottommost option. And then we're just going to move it in, clicking the blue axis here, just a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, cool. So to go back to object mode, all you need to do, right click on the object and select object mode. And now we are going to go back into our perspective view. So just hit spacebar, right click, and perspective view. All right. So now that we have the little belt here, the next step is to put the little circular indent that's on the center here. So to do this, we are going to create a cylinder. So if you go back up to poly modeling, click on the cylinder here, just going to bring it forward a little bit and rotate it. So if you hit E on your keyboard or go to the left side and click on rotate, you can do this. And if you hit J and hold it while you're rotating, it will snap to the angle. So you can get an exact 90-degree angle. There we go. So I think this needs to be a bit bigger. So let's go back to the front, or sorry, smaller. So let's go back to the front view and let's scale it down a little bit. So if you hit R, we can scale it down. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, so one more thing with the cylinder, we go over to the channel box layer editor, go to inputs, poly cylinder. Now we're gonna put up the subdivisions to 30. So it's a bit smoother of a cylinder. All right, spacebar, right click, back to perspective view. Okay. So now we're just going to move this out a little bit just to make sure it's not too deep in there. And you just want to make sure that the very end of the cylinder is just barely going into the mesh of the Pokeball sphere that we already have. All right, that looks good. Okay, so let me just make sure it's centered 100%. And we can move these guys over together so that they're lined up on the grid. And another trick is if you hit 4, it shows you the wire mesh, and then you can see through it, and it helps you center it even more. Cool. All right. All right. So now we're going to select the sphere. Why does this look crooked? Okay, I think it's fine. All right, looks good. So, okay, now we're going to select the sphere, hold shift and select the cylinder, go to mesh, go to booleans, and then click difference. And that's going to subtract the shape of the cylinder out from the shape of the sphere. So you can kind of see what happened there. Okay. So now the next step is we are going to select all these faces that we don't need. Make sure that they're lined up enough. Okay. Oops. So now we have our outer shell, as you can see. And we are going to add the inner details, or the inner bits of the Pokeball now. So if you just create another sphere, we're going to click on that, scale it up, hit R, and we're just going to make sure it's, oops, just right, perfectly lined up. I think that's probably good. And once again, you can just put up the subdivisions to 30 and 30, so we have a nice smooth sphere in there. Okay. Now we can add the cylinders that are in the middle. So create a cylinder, rotate it 90 degrees. So let's see how big it should be. So we probably want to scale that down a considerable amount. Let's just make it smaller. Okay. Make sure it's in. There we go. And we're going to put up the subdivisions to 30 again, just so it's a nice smooth circle. All right. I think it needs to be a little smaller. I think that's good. All right, so that's the first circle, and now we're just going to make the second one. So you're going to just hit Control D to duplicate, and hit W for the move tool, pull it out a little bit, R for scale, scale it down, push it back in. So it looks something like this. Might need to be a little smaller. But yeah, just keep playing around with it until you get it how you want it to look. Should look something like this at this point. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do some beveling just to add a little final touch. So if you select the first cylinder that you put in the middle, right click on it and select the edge mode. So just like that. And now you're going to double click on this edge ring. So when you double click on them, they all select. You're going to hit Shift, right click, and then bevel edge. So the reason that disappeared is because the fraction's a little too large. So we're just going to change that to 0.02, maybe even a little bit smaller, 0.01. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. So now you can see we have a nice little bevel there, kind of makes it look a little more rounded from a distance and less kind of harsh, breaking up those harsh lines. All right, so we're going to do the same thing to the second cylinder. Go to edge mode, double click on the edge, shift, right click, bevel edge, and just change that fraction to 0.01 if it is too big. And if that's too small, then we'll do 0.02. Okay, that's really small for some reason. Let's just stick with that. Okay. And yeah, if you ever want to go back and edit what you've done for any effects or tweaks that you've done on your polygon, you're just going to go into the channel box layer editor and click on the input that you did before. So I'm just going to put this fraction, let's try 0.4. Oh no. Sorry, my cat is crying. Okay. 0.4. I think that's good. I think that's good. Okay. Awesome. So now the final step is we're just going to add materials to our Pokeball. So we're going to, let's start with the white ones because most of the items in this Pokeball are white. Okay, Jesus. So you're going to go to face mode, so right click faces, and you're going to just drag and select all of the bottom circles or bottom faces on this half. And then we're going to shift right click. Oh, sorry. I mean, just regular right click. Go to assign new material. We're going to click on that. And then we're going to select a blend for this. So there's a few different types of standard Maya materials, and they all differ in the amount of like reflectivity, matte-ness, kind of functions that they all serve. But for this purpose, because the Pokeball is kind of shiny, I'm going to choose the blend. So now, if you right click again and go to material attributes, you can see it pulls up blend 1, that's our material. And I think we need it to be a bit lighter. So if you double click on the color, you can change the color to whatever you want, but we're gonna go with white for the purposes of this exercise. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. All right, and so for the top half, we're gonna kind of do the same thing where we select it, go to assign new material, we're gonna do a different blend, go to the color, and we can change it to like a deep, bright red. Something like this. That's probably a little too bright for the Pokeball. Just a little darker. There we go. Okay, now that that might be too dark. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Okay, that's fine. All right. So now we are going to select the 2 cylinders in here. We're going to right click on them and go all the way down to assign existing material. And then we're going to select our first blend, which is what we used for the bottom. So they're going to go white like that. And then for the inner sphere, we are going to right click on it, assign new material, another blend because it is still kind of shiny from the reference. And we're just going to go ahead and make it black. So yeah, there's our Pokeball. There's a lot of ways to customize this. You can turn it into an Ultra Ball or a Great Ball if you wanted to. Really, it's just a matter of selecting different faces and putting different colors on them. It's pretty straightforward. But now you know the basic shape of how to make a 3D Pokeball in Maya. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you can somehow use these skills in your future projects.